Good day, grade 12 students, and welcome back again sa ating subject na inquiries, investigations, and immersion. So tayo is nasa last module na ng first grading period. So this module is entitled Understanding Ways to Collect Data. So ito is anyway, naituro ko na naman to sa mga previous year nyo, nung grade 11 kayo. So ito is parang review na lang, yung mga topics na included dito. Okay, now, so sa first topic ng ating module number 4 is entitled Research Design, So dito sa topic na to ay kumbaga ito is review na rin lang kasi naituro ko na yung iba't ibang research design from practical research 1 and practical research 2. So we will just short recap and paano ba ginagawa, paano pino-format yung research design. So samahan niyo ako sa lesson na ito. Okay? Our lesson objectives for this day is describes adequately research design, either quantitative or qualitative, data gathering instrument, sample data collection and analysis procedures, prepares data gathering instrument. But ito kasi is objectives siya for the whole module number 4. So on this lesson ay focus lang tayo dun sa research design, whether quantitative or qualitative, and specific under those two designs. So, punta na muna tayo sa review. Of course, review muna tayo bago tayo mag-start ng ating lesson. So, napakasimple lang base sa pinag-aralan yung nakaraan, yung sa two most commonly used na format of citation, the APA format and MLA format. So, you will just going to identify whether yung given natin ay APA format or MLA format. So let us start now. So yan, you will be given 5 seconds para isulat sa papel nyo kung anong format ba yan. So I'm not going to read anymore kasi masyadong mahaba. So timer starts now. Madali lang tingnan yan, tingin pa lang, unang tingin pa lang, alam niyo na yung format. So, 5 seconds. Okay, let us see if your answer is APA style. Your answer is correct. So, obvious naman, from the surname and then the year. So, author year. Naka-author year format siya. So, obvious na siya ay APA style. Next one. Okay, so sa reference naman to or sa bibliography. So anong format siya? 5 seconds. Okay, kung ang sinulat nyo sa papel nyo ay APA style, you are correct. So kitang-kita sa surname ng author and then yung first name ay naka-acronym and yung middle initial naka-acronym rin, and then followed by the year and then the title and publishing company, so ganun din sa pangalawa, so as magkaparehas lang sila, parehas lang APA style. Let us now tackle the research methodology. So it includes the procedure in conducting the study, how data will be gathered, what data instrument will be used, and the data analysis involved in the study. So the first part of the research methodology is what we call as the research design. So napag-aralan niyo na nga ito nung kayo ay grade 11. So sa PR1 nyo, mostly you use qualitative research design, while sa PR2 or sa practical research 2, ang ginamit naman na design ay quantitative. So both, it must explain why the researchers use the design and what makes the research qualitative or quantitative. In this part ay kailangang maipaliwanag ng mga researchers kung bakit yun yung napili nilang design at bakit naging quali or quantitative yung kanilang research design. So, natatandaan nyo, no? Kung natatandaan nyo sa inyong Practical Research 1, mostly we have the 6 types of qualitative research design. So, una na nga dyan is yung ethnography. Pangalawa is yung narrative or historical. Pangatlo is phenomenological study. 4 is the grounded theory. 5, case study. And 6, content and discourse analysis. So, balikan natin, ano-ano nga ba yung mga yan, ano? So, yan, pag nakita na natin yung mga ganyang senaryo, no? Okay, so based from the picture, so obvious na siya ay ethnography, no? So, what is ethnography nga ba? It is done by immersing yourself in the target participant's environment to understand the goals, cultures, challenges, motivations, and themes that emerge. So, usually, pagka mga ganung picture, ano, ay talagang ethnography siya nagpopol. And, ginagawa siya, sometimes, mag-stay kayo dun ng mga isang buwan, kasama yung iba't ibang uri ng ethnic group, para mapag-aralan niyo sila actually and in experience to share their culture at talagang on actual experience ay maranasan nyo ang kanilang nararanasan, and then from that you can emerge with team, no? Yan pa sa Africa naman yan. Okay. Then next is the narrative or historical. So under pa rin siya ng qualitative research design, ano? So para lang nagkukwento, kaya nga historical, ano? Weaves together a sequence of events usually from just one or two individuals to form a cohesive story. So take note, one or two individuals is enough for a narrative or historical qualitative research design. Kasi kailangan pagpipili kayo of course ng inyong subject ay yun talaga makapagbibigay sa inyo ng specific information, at yung credibility ng taong pinili nyo ay dapat naandun. Halimbawa, you're going to study yung panahon ng Hapon sa Pilipinas. So, kailangan nyo ng one or two na senior citizen. At hindi lang basta senior citizen, ano? Yun talagang nabuhay nung panahon ng Hapon, just like yung mga veterans na buhay pa hanggang ngayon, yung mga veterans na lumaban sa Second World War. No? So, paano ginagawa yon? You conduct an in-depth interviews. In-depth, take note, malalim na pag-interview. Read documents and look for themes. In other words, how does an individual story illustrate the larger life influences that created it? So, paano nangyari yung isang event? Perhaps sa Pilipinas, ano? So, from that, bubuo kayo ng picture, ano? And look for themes. Kung paano ba nito nabago ang buhay ng taong ini-interview nyo at ng, of course, ng society. Yan. So, narrative writing tells a story. What is now your story? Ikukwento nyo ngayon dyan. Or ikukwento ng inyong ini-interview. Yan. Ito yung mga example. Pwede rin din ganito, no? So, example ng title, a 5-year study on the impact of the K-12 curriculum on the Philippine employment system. Pwede rin na the rise and fall of the 20-year reign of the former Philippine President Ferdinand E. Marcos. And then, coronavirus from simple threat to a global pandemic. Pwede rin yan. So, napapanahon yan. And telephones from nuclear era to the digital age. No? So, yung mga telephone, nung mga sinaunang telepono, no, nung mga early 1900s hanggang sa panahon natin ngayon, sa digital age. And then number 3 is the Phenomenological Study. So, it is used to describe an event, activity, or phenomenon. So, ano ba yung mga napapanahon na topic? Ano? This will fall under Phenomenological Study. So, it uses combination of methods such as conducting interviews, reading documents, watching videos, or visiting places and events to understand the meaning, participants' place on whatever's being examined, ano? Okay, then it rely on the participants' own perspective to provide insight into their motivation. And lastly, kailangan nyo ng interview. Usually, 5 and 25. 5 to 25 para kayo is makabuo ng common team sa isang napapanahon na event. Ano? To build sufficient data set to look for emerging teams and to use other participants to validate your thinking. So, yung inyong hypothesis kung tama ba is mababalidate nyo yun by interviewing 5 to 25 participants to arrive for a common team. So, common teams, kung pare-pares ba sila ng sinasabi, perhaps sa coronavirus, sa naging epekto sa kanilang buhay. So, dyan is makakabuo na kayo ng team and that will fall under Phenomenological Study. Yan, kagaya niyan, ano? Yung pagpapatupad ng ECQ, GCQ under Executive Order number 112 series of 2020. Okay? So that will fall under Phenomenological Study. Number 5 is the grounded theory. Okay. So sa grounded theory, of course, bubuo kayo ng theory from the ground or from your study. So provide an explanation or theory behind the events. Bakit kaya nangyari yung isang event? Bakit halimbawa nangyari ang pandemic na ito? From that, you're going to form a theory. And that will form under grounded theory. So it uses primarily interviews and existing documents. So pwede kayo mag-interview ng mga expert. Pwede kayo magbasa ng mga documents just like newspaper, mga news sa internet. From that, you can build a theory based on the data. Uses series of open and actual coding techniques to identify themes and build the theory. Kung halimbawa masyado kayong maraming data na nakuha, yun is ikinocode or kinakategorize, kinaklasify, ano? Yun yung coding na sinasabi. Yung mga teams na nabubuo ay, kumbaga, pinagbubukod-bukod until you build a theory out of that. And then, eto, pagka grounded theory, kasi theory talagang bubuoy nyo dito, kailangan nyo ng sample size between 20 hanggang 60. So, mababa na yung 20 persons, ano, para i-interview nyo. So, with these studies to better establish a theory. So, mas maganda kung mapapabot nyo hanggang 60. Para talaga walang sablay yung theory na inyong mabubuo. Okay, then number 5 is the case study na made famous by the Harvard Business School. So, saan siya ginagamit? In explaining organization, entity, company, or event. Halimbawa, case study, bakit nalugi yung Nokia? Ano? Bakit hindi siya nag-boom? Kagaya ng mga nag-existing cellphone ngayon. Bakit napag-iwanan yung Nokia, yung Sony Ericsson? Samantalang sikat na sikat dati yon. And halimbawa, yung Kodak na company, bakit nalugi? So, pag-aaralan yung case ng company na yun or ng organization na yun. And kasi pag case study, hindi lang yan sa tao. It can be applied also in an organization, an entity, a company, or event. Then, it involves deep understanding through multiple types of data sources. So, yun nga, marami kayong panggagalingan ng data. From the newspaper, from the different data na manggagaling sa internet, sa television, sa radio. So, pwede rin sa interview, ano? So, yun yung mga pwedeng panggalingan ng data or multiple types of data sources na sinasabi dito. Okay. Then, case studies can be exploratory, or describing an event. Yan. Bakit may mga taong ganyan? Describe nyo. Ano? Punong-puno ng tattoo sa katawan. Pero may mas malala pa dyan. Ano? Ultimo anit ng buhok may tattoo na, no? So, yan yung mga pwedeng i-case study. Yan, yung mga taong ganyan, bakit pumapasok sa isip nila yan. And then, yan, a two-headed child can also be a case study aside dun sa mga binanggit ko na kanina na pwede rin siyang applicable sa mga companies and entities. Number 6 is the content and discourse analysis Pag sinabi naman natin content and discourse analysis, so it is a method of qualitative research that requires an analysis or examination of the substance or content of the mode of communication. Halimbawa, aaralin nyo bakit yung isang tao, yung speech niya ay ganun ang kinalabasan, ano? Or bakit kaya ganito yung pag-uugali ng isang tao, ano? So, from the letters, books, journals, photos, video recordings, SMS, online messages, emails, audio-visual materials, etc. So, yan yung mga isinasama. Pwede rin silang aralin, ano? Halimbawa, yung sa formatting ng pagsasalita ng isang tao, no? Through SMS. Or kaya naman yung mga video recording niya, bakit ganun siya mag-usap? Or bakit ganun yung ugali? And then yung photos, bakit may kakaiba? So, maybe that substance that can be found on the culture or institution a person is belonging, ano? So, pag-aaralan nyo yung isang tao, and from that, ano ba yung, saan nyo pwedeng i-analyze yung pag-uugali ng isang tao or group or organization. So, they can be analyzed using the letters that they use. Kung may books sila, books na nasusulat tungkol sa kanila. And then the journals, ano, na sila mismo ang gumawa, then the photos, video recordings, SMS, and online message. Yan kasi yung mga kadalasan na nagpapakita ng culture ng isang tao. Halimbawa, yung president natin, bakit ganun siya mag-usap? Sometimes may mga hindi magagandang salita, but that may imply the institution or yung place or yung organization, lugar na kung saan siya kabilang. Okay? So, content and discourse analysis. Yan, ito pa, no? So, ito nga sinasabi ko, study of the language structures used in the medium of communication to discover the effects of sociological, cultural, institutional, and ideological factors on the content makes it a discourse analysis. So, language structure ang pinag-aaralan dito in the different forms na binanggit ko na kanina. Ito yon. So, hindi ko na isa-isahin pa. Okay. Next, punta na tayo sa types of quantitative research. So, quantitative na tayo, So, una is survey research descriptive. Pangalawa is the correlational research. Pangatlo is the causal-comparative or quasi-experimental design. Pang-apat is the experimental research or true experimentation. And then, in some books, may karagdagang pang isa, which is the assessment or evaluation studies. So, unahin natin yung survey, research descriptive. Ito yung pinakamadali sa lahat na gawing research pagdating sa quantitative research, Okay? So, it uses interviews, questionnaires, and sampling polls to get a sense of behavior with intense precision. So, allows researchers to judge behavior and then present the findings in accurate way. Usually expressed in percentage. Okay. So, sa survey research, kaya nga siya survey, magsa-survey kayo, mamimigay kayo ng mga questionnaires, sampling polls. Then, sometimes it uses interviews. So, yung mga ginagamit, halimbawa sa mga games, or kaya lang pagka gumamit kayo ng Google Meet, na yung 5-star, 3-star, 4-star, depende kung paano ba yung service ng na ibinigay nila, kung kayo ba yung nasiyan. That is an example of survey research, At halimbawa sa mga restaurant, yon, may mga survey rin silang ginagawa. Halimbawa may mga may mga boxes na kumbaga pwede nyong ilagay doon yung kung kayo ba'y nasiyahan sa kanilang mga services. And then yon, so that is an example of survey research. This can also be done in many medium. Pwede siyang gawin through internet, pwedeng telephone calls, pwedeng through SMS, pwedeng sa messenger rin, So maraming means ng pagsa-survey. Okay, it can be conducted around one group or used to compare several groups. Halimbawa, yung mag-survey kayo sa isang section, halimbawa sa ICT, then mag-survey kayo sa food tech, so then compare yung naging resulta. Kung parehas ba sila ng perception sa isang bagay, ano? Halimbawa sa absenteeism, kung parehas ba silang agree or disagree doon. And then sampling of people question must be random to allow for more accurate findings across a greater spectrum of respondents. Kailangan random. Ano? Hindi kayo, kumbaga, wag lang kayong pupunta sa isang lugar, pwede nyong i-random yung mga tao para talagang dun sa population and then sa samples na mapipili nyo ay more accurate yung inyong findings, ano, and then across greater spectrum of respondents. So you use random sampling pagka survey research, ano. Then it is very important when conducting survey research that you work with statisticians who are reputable. Kasi although tinuturo naman natin yung yung pagko-compute sa statistics, mas maganda pa rin na talaga magko-consult muna kayo sa teacher. Huwag kayong basta dediretso. At baka sa pagtatali ng data ay magkamali kayo. Mahalaga kasi yung tallying and analysis of the data. Yan. So as I've said, ito yung several ways to conduct survey research. In person, self-administer, or yung personal, kayo yung mamimigay ng questionnaire. Pwedeng pa-mail. Then, online polls. Ayan. Over the phone, patawag. Email. And pwede rin sa rating. Ayan. Yung mga ginagawa sa dati sa Pinoy Big Brother, yung mga halimbawa star circle quest, yung mga tipong ganun, yun ay example ng online polls na gumagamit yung mga botohan kung sinong gusto nyo matanggal or hindi, okay? So maraming paraan. There are several ways to conduct survey research. So hindi lang yung 6 na yan, marami pang pwedeng idagdag dyan. Okay, pangalawang type bukod sa survey research is the correlational research. So it is a test for the relationship between two variables. It is done to know the effect of one on the other. It does not look for cause and effect and therefore mostly observational in terms of data collection. So hindi kayo nakapokus sa cause and effect dito, na kayo is nakapokus sa correlation. Later explain ko siya. Okay? Is conducted in order to explain a notice occurrence. And it is conducted on a minimum of 2 groups. Kaya nga siya correlation. Kailangan at least may 2 groups kang kinukumpara. So, it is a test for the relationship between 2 variables. Halimbawa, pagka ba yung isa ay tumaas, yung isang variable naman ay bababa. Halimbawa, yung pagba ang temperature ay tumaas, ang pressure ay bababa. O halimbawa naman, pag dumami ba ang gamot ay bababa ang cases ng COVID, ganun, or pag tumataas ba ang COVID number victims or yung mga patients ay nababawasan ba ang bilang ng mga bedroom sa hospital. Yung mga simpleng ganun lang na pag-iisip, So correlational research, as one goes up ba, the other one goes down. Then next, number 3 is the causal-comparative or quasi-experimental design. Siya ay quasi-experimental. Not necessarily siya ay experiment talaga, pero that falls under experimental. Pero hindi naman ito yung mga nagbibiyak ng kung ano-ano, at naghahalo-halo ng kung ano-anong mga chemicals, kagaya ng sa true experimentation. So, ano nga ba ito? It seeks to establish a cause-effect relationship between 2 or more variables. The researcher does not manipulate the independent variable. Control groups are identified and exposed to the variable. Results are compared with results from groups not exposed to the variable. So, halimbawa lang yan ng causal-comparative or quasi-experimental. Kaya nga yung causal-comparative. Halimbawa, may dalawang section. Yung isang section ay tinuruan gamit ng ginamitan ng Google Classroom at yung isang section naman ay pure modular. So from that ay meron na tayong dalawang grupo So ano kaya yung kung ginamitan ng Google Classroom yung isa, ng ICT yung isa naman ay pa-modular, and from that parehas na bibigyan sila ng post-test, alin kaya ang mas mataas? So ano yung magkokos ng pagtaas ng score? Mas mataas kaya sa ginamitan ng Google Classroom? Or mas mataas dun sa ginamitan ng modular? So, ano yung naging cost? And then from that, you're going to compare. That is causal-comparative or quasi-experimental design. Not necessarily na may pinaghalo-halo kung ano-anong mga pinagbibiyak dyan, or not necessarily through experimentation na mag-iimbento ka ng mga gamot, hindi siya ganun. But, ano lang yung nag-cost ng pagbabago? Halimbawa nga sa binigay kong example. At tatandaan na sa pagpili ng grupo dito, kailangan ay parehas sila. Parehas ng mental ability or kaya naman is parehas ng physical structure. Ayan. Number 4 is the experimental research or the true experimentation. Use scientific method to establish cause-effect relationship among a group of variables in a research study. So researchers makes an effort to control for all variables except the one being manipulated or the independent variable. So the effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable are collected and analyzed for a relationship or kung may correlation ba siya, So gagamit na ng scientific method dito to establish cause-effect relationship. Yung mga ginagawang clinical trial para sa vaccine against COVID-19, that is an example of a true experimentation, So clinical trial, So wherein minamanipulate nila yung mga type ng vaccine na ini-inject sa tao, kung alin ba dun yung mas or pinakang effective from the time na using the time na gagaling, kung saan mas mabilis gumaling yung isang tao, as well as the medicine so yung vaccine kasi panlaban yun, and then yung medicine for the COVID is nag-undergo rin ng clinical trial. Okay, in summary, ito yung 4, pero meron pang isa mamaya So in summary, so the quantitative research approach to experimental design. So sa descriptive, the key focus, observational, describing what is variable, not controlled. Then correlational, explores and observes relationships among variables, not controlled. Sa quasi-experimental naman, test for causality, cause, with suboptimal variable control. And then sa experimental, test causality with an optimal variable control. So you see, sa intervention applied naman, sa descriptive, no. Sa correlation, no. And then sa quasi-experimental, yes. And sa experimental is yes. Parehas na may intervention or manipulation ng variables. Okay, so hindi ko nababasahin yung example, And then the common design. So, pwede nyo i-screenshot to at pag-aralan nyo para alam nyo kung ano yung mga common designs na papatak under your research kung siya is mag-undergo ng quantitative research design under these 4 types. Okay, last one is the assessment evaluation studies. Sa ibang libro kasi is meron nito, kaya syempre dadagdag ko to. So ano yung assessment or evaluation studies? It attempts to determine the effectiveness or efficiency of a certain practice or policies when applied to a group of respondents. Halimbawa, effectiveness of K-12 program, cost, efficiency, and impact on quality. So, yung program or yung practice natin ng K-12, siya ba ay may epekto, no? It attempts to determine the effectiveness or efficiency of a certain practice. So, yung bang K-12 ay naging effective nung ating siyang ginamit or in-apply sa ating system, ano? So, i-assess ngayon yon, evaluate, ano? So, yan yung example ng assessment or evaluation studies. Another example, limbawa, yung ating bang school rules and regulation ay epektibo ba siya yung pagdating sa mga late? Yung hindi pa, halimbawa ay pagbabawal yung pagpapasok sa gate. Tumino kaya yung mga madalas ma-late, ano? So, yun is i-assess and i-evaluate. At yung mga ganong type ng study is magpo-fall under assessment or evaluation studies. Yan. Then, next, guidelines on the formulation of research design. Ito yung mga dapat nating sundin sa actual sa pagka magsusunod na tayo sa ating research, ano? So, simple lang naman to. So, first paragraph, discuss what research design you will use. Discuss nyo ngayon kung quali ba or quantitative or sometimes mixed method ba yung gamit nyo. Halo. Ano? And then, pwedeng sa second sentence, sa 1.2, pag sinabing 1.2, pangalawang sentence na yan. So, after you discuss the research design, of course, kailangan yun is i-define nyo yun, ano? I-define nyo, ano yung definition ng qualitative research design? Ano yung definition ng quantitative research design, ano? So, you define it. And then, 1.3, state the reason, procedure that makes your research qualitative or quantitative or combination. So, sabihin nyo, bakit naging quali, bakit naging quanti yung inyong research? Or bakit naging mixed method yung research nyo? No? So, discuss nyo yun sa first paragraph. So, usually, this is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So, pinakamababa yung tatlong sentence. Okay. Then, sa second paragraph naman, tell what specific research design will you use. Ano? So, halimbawa, gumamit kayo ng qualitative, na-discuss nyo na yan sa first paragraph. Ano? And then sa second paragraph, alin dun sa mga yon, ano? Yung ginamit nyo. Siya ba ay ethnography, narrative, historical, phenomenological study, grounded theory, or case study? Or halimbawa naman for quantitative research design, anong specific dun? Survey research ba siya or descriptive? Correlational research, causal-comparative, quasi-experimental design, experimental research, through experimentation, assessment, or evaluation studies ba siya? So, alin dyan naman ginamit yung specific, ano? And then, 2.2 or in the second sentence of the second paragraph, discuss the connection of your chosen specific qualitative or quantitative research design to your research. Halimbawa, bakit naging through experimentation yung inyong research? So, discuss nyo yun. Okay, example of a research design. This study used descriptive method of research under qualitative research design. Ayan. Then, from that, define descriptive research is used to describe characteristics of a population or phenomenon being studied. Then, it does not answer questions about how, when, why the characteristic occurred. Rather, it addressed, yun na yun, ano? According to Koshwa 2015. And then the researchers use descriptive because the research focus more on describing perception of specific population in assessing and studying road renovation in Barangay San Roque, Antipolo City. So, sinabi dito kung bakit ba descriptive under qualitative research design yung kanilang ginamit. What makes it the research a qualitative research design, ano? Specifically, descriptive method. And then, specific design, grounded theory ang ginamit nila under qualitative research method. Then, i-define yung grounded theory was also used in the study which looks to describe the essence of an activity or event. So, it also looks to provide an explanation or theory behind the events using 60 samples of coding from interviews. Then, yung dahilan, bakit naging grounded theory? The present research used primarily interviews and existing documents to build a theory based on the data from 60 samples. Remember, kailangan ng 60 samples para maging credible yung theory na mabubuo if you're going to use grounded theory. Okay, so iwan ko sa inyo to. So, tandaan, ang estudyanteng masipag, may extra allowance. God bless and keep safe.